So what do you make of Vitor versus Gastelum? I mean, how's that strike you?
There's not too many people can beat the Gastelum that fought Kennedy a few months ago. I mean, that in two weight classes, at 85 and at 70, that's a tough ticket right there.
Well, since you said that, then let's stay on that for a minute. What do you do with Gastelum? If you're Gastelum or the promotion, you got a guy that's a killer in two different weight classes, but you got to pick one. You know, he's fighting at 70 and doing all sorts of things. Now he's going to headline a card at 85. Do you keep him at 85? Do you move him to 70?
Well, I think if Gastelum goes out and, I mean, he's a 3-1 favorite. I mean, everybody in the world is counting on him repeating that performance in Brazil. I'm one of them. This is a business of short memories, and my last memory was him looking like the best fighter on the planet against a really good Tim Kennedy.
At 185.
At 185.
So now he's going to headline against a former champion, a legend like Vitor, at 85. Let's say he wins. I'm just talking long term. If he's a player in two different divisions, if he's going to go after a title run, he's got to pick a division. So I'm just asking, what do you do?
Well,
or do you just keep floating it back and forth?
Here's your problem. You got a logjam at 185 for the championship right now. So let's say it goes Bisping's way. Bisping already said, and they're not going to fight until this summer. So let's say Bisping takes out GSP in July. He'll come back. Let's say he comes back in September and fights Jacare. Gastelum would have to win this match and against another killer, and then you could feed him a championship bout before the end of the year. Let's say it goes GSP's way. GSP looks like he's got a plan, and he kind of showed his cards a little bit, or the media showed the cards and said that, you know, he would still like to fight Anderson. So let's say GSP wins that fight. Well, then GSP fights Anderson for the title, just like Danny fought Bisping. You know, everybody was like, hey, you shouldn't make this fight. And we were like, why not? I want to see this fight. Same thing. You can feed us that. That puts the same scenario out there, except now you still have Jacare waiting for a fight. That doesn't come around until the beginning of next year.
What in the hell are you talking about? In no scenario is Gastelum's next fight for a championship. What I'm asking you...
I said one more.
Great. What I'm asking you is if he's going to make a run, okay, and he's a contender, top 5 contender in 2 weight classes, he has to pick one. I'm just asking you, what weight class should he pick?
185.
See, I'm with you on that.
180. I mean, 100%. Why would you change? Why would you torture yourself to go down to 170, of which you've already had a problem? And you know, he's still. This is a young guy. You've already had a problem 2 or 3 times at 170. Why go down there if you're killing everybody at 185?
Yeah. See, I'm with you completely on that. You know, he made that drop to 170 after the Ultimate Fighter. He won the Ultimate Fighter, the toughest tournament in all sports. He wins that. He beats Uriah Hall. He goes down to 170. He kills everybody at 170. But to your point, he missed weight a number of times. I think it was 3 times. One of them by 8 pounds. I mean, sizably. That was for the Tyrone fight. Remember the hospital, and he had to go in, and the fight was almost canceled. And he's unblemished at 185. So it's like, hey, if you can do it in 2 weight classes, do it in the one you're more comfortable at.
Let me backtrack a little bit, because I'm going to give you some props. You have been calling that tournament, you personally, the toughest tournament in sports for as long as I can remember. And the UFC has started promoting it that way now.
Yeah, and as long as you can remember, just when I first coached it on season 17 with John Jones, yeah, I call it that, and it did pick up, but it should have. I mean, it should have. You know, I'll remind you, we kind of redid the whole way that was done. Up until then, they were calling a reality show. I remember going on the very first conference call, talking about the fight, just saying, hey guys, stop. I don't have any idea where this rhetoric came from, that this is a reality show. The reality is it's a show. The Super Bowl is too. The reality is the Super Bowl is put on TV, but this is a competition. There's no scripts, no editing. This is the toughest tournament in all of sports that's getting documented. And it was just a fair point. That wasn't some kind of brilliant thing by me, but they did realize it, and the entire dialogue as it pertains to that show did change after that day, but it should have. Those guys always should have been given their credit. You come through that tournament, You're living in the house with these guys. You're making weight. You're fighting the guy that's sleeping one bedroom next to you. I mean, it's really, really tough. Talk about tough competition. Guys come through that show. They go right into winning world championships. Matt Serra, the Forrest Griffins, Josh Koscheck going to the finals, Diego Sanchez going into world championship fights. It's the toughest tournament in sports. That's what it should have been called. And the guys that have gone through that process should never be called, reality show guys. Like, man, the reality is this is really, really tough with a lot on the line here. Very little reward, huge risk, and those guys should be given their due.
Hey, do you know who's fighting tomorrow?
I know it's not Jacare and Whitaker.
Lesnar's fighting Couture tomorrow.
In the co-main event.
Yep.
And they told nobody.
Yep.
That sounds right.
Okay.
That sounds right.
But serious, Gastelum's a killer. Just stay at that weight. Why would you want to go down? I mean, you've had your best performances, you personally, at 185. I mean, you are a 185 pounder, and that's where you personally belong. And I think that Gastelum belongs at that weight too.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I don't see why he would put himself in jeopardy of missing weight or the uncomfortableness. And he fights great at 170, no two ways about it. But boy, he fights great at 185. When he just coming through the Ultimate Fighter, I'll go back to that. That's how he got his debut and his opportunity. But even if you look at his very last performance, Tim Kennedy, you know how good Tim Kennedy is? Kelvin goes out and stops Tim Kennedy. Tell me anyone else that's ever stopped Tim Kennedy. Michael Bisping didn't even beat Tim Kennedy. Jacare didn't come close to stopping Tim Kennedy. It's a big win, and now he's going to take on a former world champion, and he's going to need to fight. If he buys into that, hey, I got an easy fighter, this is Vitor, you've seen how quick things change in the octagon, but I trust that he'll show up and perform. One thing about him is he's very, very consistent. Even in his loss to Tyron Woodley, he fought consistently in that he fought hard. He worked the whole time. He stayed out of positions. Worst performance he's ever had. And one judge still thought he beat the current world champion. He's that good. A moment ago, you were talking about title contention for him, though. That wasn't the route I was going down. He will be in contention sometime. But to your other point, there's just a jam at both weight classes. Even at 170, there's no... Damian Maia is the most slighted guy in MMA history. Masvidal, as great as he is in the pushes he's got, isn't far behind him. I thought Masvidal, the second he signed with the UFC, was going to get this huge push, and it just never happened. He's marketable. He's a killer. He's fun to watch. He's got a good fan base. But you can only put your marketing dollars and your TV time. Only so many guys can fit on a poster. Only so many guys can fit on a billboard. You got to pick those spots, and sometimes guys do get lost in the shuffle. But Masvidal was one of those guys. And point being, at 170, they're a little jammed up too. Who's Tyron going to fight next? Well, don't forget about a guy named Robbie Lawler that won the championship and held on to it for a while. Don't forget about him. Then you got the Masvidal-Maia match finally. So I'm not arguing that Kelvin's going to be fighting for a belt soon, though he is good enough to. I'm not arguing that he's going to, from a marketing standpoint, and a push. I'm just arguing that at some point he needs to pick a weight class. I don't want him to be like take a Cowboy Cerrone, by example, who's a killer at two different weights, floats between 55 and 70, wins a ton of fights, but not enough in one division to finally get, the marquee spot and fight for a title. I don't want that to happen to Kelvin. I want him to pick his spot, and I am with you. I want him to pick 185. That's a personal choice, and you just got to stay out of the way and see what a guy does. There's only a few choices that a guy doesn't get any advice from and gets to make his own decision with in his career, and a weight class is one of them. But I don't know who ever grabbed Kelvin in the first place, threw their arms around him and said, hey, we need to take you to 170. It's like, based on what? He just won the Ultimate Fighter at 185.
The guy telling somebody to go down a weight class is a guy that's never had to cut that weight, I think. It's some guy with glasses on and a big old checkbook that says, hey, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, there has been a misconception in this sport from the beginning. We see it in wrestling, we see it in jiu-jitsu, we see it in boxing, that the smaller you can go, the littler you can go, the better. And there's just no history to prove that's true. That whole size advantage thing has been thrown out and disproved so many different times. Then you affect the way that a guy lives. When a guy like Kelvin's got to cut to 170, now you've affected the way he lives. You've affected the way he trains, how many calories he has, what kind of energy he has, what kind of night's rest he's getting. You've put all of his effort into some other basket. And there is an argument the other side. I've seen guys that need to go down in weight, not just because they fight better there. Some of it has to do with height. You always hear about reach, but it's really height that can matter. Height plays into the sport 5 times more than reach ever would. And then the other thing is I know some guys that the only way they can get into shape is to have to go down a weight class. It forces them to run more. It forces them to diet more. It changes their cardio. It just changes so many different things. Kelvin's just not that guy. He's a guy that competes to the top of the world at 170. He competes to the top of the world at 185. So he gets to make a choice, and it would seem logical that a guy would go where he is more comfortable, especially a young guy like Kelly. He's 24 years old. He's going to grow. His body's just going to get bigger. Why would he try to cannibalize it and keep it down would be my question. And he may have an answer where he goes, look, mentally, this is where I think I need to be. Well, then you do. But I would think that with his track record, with his wins and high caliber fights, with the fact that he's going to main event, I do think he beats Vitor. I think when we're talking about this show next week, now Kelvin's got, boom, another win at 185, a main event, a 5-round fight against a legend. And I just think the argument for 85 becomes even stronger.